I'm 53 years old. Most of my life, I've played it safe, followed the rules, stayed in the lines, did what was expected of me. I was the dependable one. The one who always had a casserole ready for the church potluck, who never missed a PTA meeting, who kept her emotions in a tidy little box with a bow on top. Love. I thought I understood it. I married young, divorced older, and remarried a man who brought with him a grown son and a quiet sort of contentment. No fireworks, just something steady. And I was fine with that. Or at least, I thought I was. But then something happened. Something I didn't expect. Something I still don't fully understand. I never thought something like this could happen to me. Please, don't make the same mistake I did. It started on a Saturday afternoon. One of those early spring days when the sunlight spills through the windows just right, warming up the kitchen tiles and making everything feel softer somehow. I was in the middle of rearranging a vase of daffodils, distracted, mostly, trying to fight off the quiet that always settled over the house when Jack, my husband, was away on business. He traveled more often these days, and I had grown used to the silence. I didn't hear Nathan come down the stairs. He startled me when he walked into the kitchen, one hand fiddling awkwardly with a navy blue tie, the collar of his dress shirt still popped up. I hadn't even realized he was home for the weekend, though I suppose Jack had mentioned it. My mind had been elsewhere lately. "Hey, Sharon," he said, flashing that sheepish half-smile I remembered from when he was a teenager. "You, know how to tie one of these things?" I blinked at him, still holding a daffodil stem in one hand. Nathan was 27 now, tall like his father, but leaner, more relaxed in his posture, a little more thoughtful in the way he moved. We'd never been especially close, but there was never tension between us either. Just space. Respectful distance. I set the flower back in the vase. "Of course," I said, brushing my hands against my jeans. "Come here." He stepped closer. I reached up and folded his collar properly, fingers brushing against his neck. He smelled faintly of soap and something warmer, maybe cedar from the aftershave Jack used to wear but hadn't in years. I looped the tie around his neck, measuring the ends, then began tying it from muscle memory, the way I used to for my first husband. Nathan looked down at me. "It's funny," he said. "Dad never taught me this. He always just bought the clip-on kind." I smiled without looking up. Jack's practical. "You're more." "Careful," he said. The words lingered in the air longer than they should have. My hands slowed slightly, just for a beat, before continuing the knot. I tightened the tie and smoothed it down against his chest. His shirt was crisp, and he looked, well, handsome, if I'm being honest. It hit me in that moment that I hadn't really seen Nathan in a long time. Not like this. "There," I said, stepping back. "You're all set." "Thanks," he said, then hesitated. I'm going to a job interview. It's nothing big, just a local agency. But I figured I should at least look like I know what I'm doing." I nodded, suddenly feeling the need to busy my hands. I returned to the vase and adjusted a bloom that didn't need adjusting. "You'll do great." He watched me for a second. "You always say that." That doesn't make it any less true. I felt his gaze on me, not in a way that was inappropriate, just searching, like he was trying to read a book with half the pages torn out. I turned to say something else, something light, but he'd already stepped back, clearing his throat. "Well," he said, "I should go. Don't want to be late. Good luck, Nathan." "Thanks." And then he was gone. But the air in the kitchen felt different after that. He hadn't done anything wrong. Neither had I, but something had shifted. A quiet hum under the surface. Something that made my skin feel warm even after the door clicked shut behind him. I stood there for a long while, staring at the flowers, wondering why my heart was fluttering like a teenager's. And that's how it began. Not with a look, not with a word, just with a tie. The house was quiet again. I thought that silence would settle me, help me shake the strange feeling in my chest, but it didn't. If anything, it made it louder. I moved through the kitchen like I was trying to outrun something, scrubbing a perfectly clean countertop, reorganizing the spice rack, folding a dish towel 3 times before tossing it aside. I kept thinking about his eyes. Not in a romantic way, I told myself. Not like that asterisk. It was just, he looked at me like he saw me. Really saw me. That doesn't happen much anymore when you're a woman my age. People stop noticing. You start to disappear in plain sight. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the back porch. The daffodils were glowing in the last of the sun, and the wind had that cool bite that reminded you spring wasn't fully committed yet. I sipped slowly, letting the chill bite at my bare feet. My phone buzzed. A message. Asterisk, Nathan. Asterisk. Thanks again for the help. I think it went well, asterisk. I stared at the text a moment longer than I should have, then typed back, asterisk, proud of you. I hope they see what I do, asterisk. I hit send and instantly regretted the last part. Asterisk what I do, asterisk, what was that supposed to mean? But he responded almost immediately. Asterisk, Nathan. Asterisk, that means a lot. Really? Asterisk. I didn't reply, just stared out at the fading sun, letting the warmth of the wine blur the edges of my thoughts. The next day, I didn't expect to see him again so soon. But around noon, just as I was loading laundry into the machine, I heard the front door open. Sharon? His voice. Again. I stepped into the hallway, and there he was, standing in the entryway with his suit jacket folded over one arm and a small plastic bag in the other. I forgot this, he said, holding up the bag. Toothbrush. I thought I might be staying overnight when I came. Oh, I said, brushing my hands on my jeans. Right. He lingered by the door, eyes scanning the living room like it held some kind of answer. I watched him a moment before finally breaking the silence. You want coffee? I offered. He looked at me, surprised. Sure. We moved into the kitchen, and I busied myself with the familiar rhythm, scoop, pour, press. Nathan leaned against the counter, his shirt sleeves rolled up, hair slightly tousled from the wind outside. He looked less polished than the day before, and somehow more himself. I got a call back, he said. I turned, smiling. Already? That's amazing. They want a second interview. Monday. I poured the coffee into 2 mugs and handed him one. Our fingers brushed for a second, and that strange hum came back, the one I thought I'd left behind yesterday. Congrats, I said, trying to keep my voice even. You deserve it. He took a sip, then set the mug down. You know, you're easy to talk to. That caught me off guard. Am I? He nodded. You always listen. My mom used to interrupt a lot. She meant well, but he trailed off, looking toward the window. With you, it's different. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just smiled softly and turned to take another sip. I used to think of you just as my dad's wife, he added. But lately... His voice faded, and the space between us grew thick. I didn't move. Couldn't. His words lingered like heat in the air. "Lately what?" I asked quietly. He looked at me, and for the first time there was something unspoken behind his gaze. Something that made me feel exposed and curious and cautious all at once. "Lately," he said, "you seem different, lighter, or maybe I'm just seeing things I didn't notice before." I set my mug down. My hands felt too warm. "Nathan, I started, but the words faltered." He shook his head gently. "I'm sorry. That probably came out weird. I didn't mean to make things awkward." But it was awkward. Not because of what he said, but because of what I felt. Because some part of me, some deeply buried, half-forgotten part, wanted to feel seen. And he had seen me. I forced a smile. "It's okay." We stood there in silence, the coffee between us cooling slowly. Neither of us moved to end the moment, but neither of us knew what to do with it, either. Eventually, he glanced at the clock. I should head out. I nodded. "Good luck Monday." He walked to the door and paused, hand on the knob. "Thanks again for everything." And then he was gone, leaving the door gently swinging behind him, and my heart caught somewhere between confusion and something I didn't dare name. I stood there, trying to breathe, trying to will the heat in my cheeks to fade. What was I feeling? And more importantly, why now? The next few days passed in a blur, though I pretended they didn't. I kept myself busy, deep-cleaned the pantry, reorganized the linen closet, even dusted the tops of the bookshelves, which I hadn't done in years. But no matter how much I busied my hands, my thoughts wandered back to that moment in the kitchen. The way Nathan had looked at me. The warmth in his voice. The unspoken something that crackled in the silence between us. It wasn't wrong, I told myself. Not technically asterisk. I was his stepmother, yes, but I hadn't raised him. I'd married Jack when Nathan was already in college. We'd never shared holidays as a family, never had bedtime routines or school pickups. Ours had always been more of a polite coexistence than a bond. But still, there were lines. Lines I'd spent my life respecting. Lines that lately seemed to blur in the most unexpected places. Monday morning came, and with it, a message. Nathan. On my way to the second interview. Wish me luck, I stared at it for a moment before replying. Of course. You've got this. Let me know how it goes, I didn't expect him to, but a few hours later, my phone buzzed again. Nathan. It went great. They'd offered me the job, A smile broke across my face before I realized I was smiling. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I knew they'd see what I see, There it was again, that phrase. He replied with a simple heart emoji. I put the phone down and stared out the window. The sun was high, the sky sharp and blue, and yet something inside me felt unsteady. That evening, Jack called. I hadn't spoken to him since he left for his conference in Denver. "Hey, babe," he said. "How's everything back home?" "Fine," I said, curling the phone cord around my finger. Quiet. "Is Nathan still there?" "No, he left yesterday. Came by for a bit, but didn't stay long." "Good kid," Jack said. "Glad you two are getting along better. Wasn't always easy in the beginning, huh?" "No," I agreed. "It wasn't." We chatted a little longer, but my heart wasn't in it. When we hung up, I stared at the darkening sky and wondered how I had ended up here, in this house, in this moment, heart thudding for reasons I didn't quite understand. Later that night, I stepped out onto the porch with a glass of wine. The breeze was warm for April, carrying the scent of fresh grass and blooming magnolia. I had just settled into the old wicker chair when I heard footsteps on the gravel. My breath caught. Nathan. He looked surprised to see me sitting there, like maybe he'd come to leave something and go. He held up a small brown paper bag. "I brought you something," he said. I blinked. "For me?" He handed it over. Inside was a lemon tart from the bakery downtown, the one I used to mention loving but hadn't visited in years. "I remembered you liked these," he said. I smiled despite the heat rising in my cheeks. "Thank you. That's thoughtful." He sat down beside me. Not too close, not far, just there. The silence was heavier tonight, but not uncomfortable. There was something about the dark, the quiet hum of night, that made honesty feel easier. "Can I ask you something?" he said, voice low. "Of course. Are you happy?" The question hit me in the ribs. I stared at him, unsure how to answer. "With Jack?" I asked, stalling. "With everything." I looked out into the yard. The moonlight cast long shadows across the grass, and for a moment I wished I were someone else, someone braver, someone less cautious. "I don't know," I admitted. "Some days I think I am. Other days I feel like I'm waiting for something I can't name." He didn't say anything right away, just nodded. "I get that," he said softly. I turned to him then, and the look in his eyes nearly undid me. It wasn't lust. It wasn't even flirtation. It was asterisk seeing asterisk. That quiet, tender recognition that you're not as invisible as you thought. "You make me feel noticed," I said before I could stop myself. "I notice you," he said, "more than I probably should." My heart stammered in my chest. I didn't move. Neither did he. We sat like that for what felt like forever. Two people holding something delicate between them, afraid to break it and afraid to let it go. Eventually, I stood. "It's late," I said, my voice almost a whisper. He stood too. "Yeah, I should get going." He paused by the steps, then looked back. "Sharon." I met his gaze. "I don't want to make your life harder. I like being around you, and I don't know what to do with that." I nodded, throat tight. "Me neither." And then he left, and I stood alone under the stars, holding a lemon tart I hadn't asked for, feeling more seen and more confused than I had in years. The days that followed felt suspended in time, like I was moving through fog. I kept going through the motions, cooking, cleaning, replying to emails, but everything felt slower, heavier. I'd catch myself standing still in the middle of a room, staring at nothing. My mind would drift back to that night on the porch, to Nathan's eyes, his words. Asterisky like being around you asterisk. He hadn't reached out again, and I hadn't either. It was safer that way. Jack returned on Thursday. I picked him up from the airport, smiled when I saw him, kissed his cheek like I always did. We talked about his trip, about the boring conference speakers, and the overpriced hotel breakfast. It was comfortable, familiar, predictable. And yet, when we got home, I found myself watching him differently, listening for something deeper in his words, wondering if he had ever really seen me the way Nathan had. By Saturday, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I needed to talk to someone who would listen without judgment. So I called my sister Marianne. We hadn't spoken in weeks. I didn't tell her everything, just enough. Do you ever feel like you woke up one day and didn't recognize your life? I asked. All the time, she said without hesitation. Especially since turning 50. You start questioning everything. Who you are, what you gave up, what you'll never get back. I feel like there's this version of me that I buried years ago, I said. And suddenly, she's clawing her way back. Marianne didn't speak for a while. Then she said, whatever's waking her up, don't ignore it. That doesn't mean you need to act on it. But you need to listen. That night, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing my hair, and I barely recognized the woman looking back at me. She was softer now, a little more worn, but not fragile. There was something alive in her eyes, a question she wasn't ready to answer. Around 10 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Jack was already asleep. I froze. Another knock, softer this time. I moved down the stairs slowly, barefoot, heart hammering. When I opened the door, Nathan was there. He looked uncertain. His hands were in his jacket pockets, his hair slightly damp from the drizzle outside. "Aye," he said. "Nathan." My voice was hushed. "It's late. I know. I shouldn't have come. But I couldn't sleep. I needed to see you." I stepped out onto the porch, gently closing the door behind me. The air was cool and smelled of wet leaves. "You shouldn't be here," I said, but there was no anger in my voice. Just truth. He looked down, then back at me. "I know, but I didn't want things to end like that. Not in silence." "They didn't end," I whispered. "They paused." He took a breath. "I meant what I said. About how I feel when I'm around you. And I know it's complicated, but you make me feel seen too. Like I'm not just my father's son. Like I'm me. The honesty in his voice cracked something in me. I stepped closer, my voice trembling. "Nathan, what we feel, it's real. But real doesn't always mean right. Sometimes we're meant to cross paths not to begin something, but to wake something up." His eyes searched mine. "So what now?" I looked at him. This young man who had stirred something long dormant in me, and I finally felt clarity rise like a tide. "Now," I said gently, "we take what we've learned and carry it forward. Separately." He nodded slowly, his eyes shining. "I'll always care about you. And I'll always be grateful you reminded me I'm still capable of being seen." We didn't hug. We didn't touch. But when he turned and walked away into the misty night, I felt something lift. I stood on the porch long after he disappeared from view. When I finally went back inside, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. And maybe, for the first time in years, I felt free.